Uzi was in those conversations. I feel like Lil Baby was in those conversations as well.
You know, A&R Twitter, PR Twitter, management Twitter is sitting there thinking, what?
The artists aren't the issue, I feel like, because, you know, there have been major R&B, like, moments, I feel like, in recent years.
Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome to a fresh episode of Billboard Unfiltered. And we have the gang here. Trevor Anderson.
That's right.
Kyle Denis.
Yo.
No Damian Scott. He is on the mend, but we'll be back. We want to start the show because I know you were out.
You know, I didn't want to say it, but
Yeah, we gotta.
Let's go.
We're not gonna
let's
do a
go.
quick happy birthday sing, you know, a little sing along,
We
but
got a little two-part harmony, you know.
Happy birthday to you.
Come on.
Happy
Come on.
birthday to
oh, you want us to go all the way in?
I want a little more volume, a little more lift.
I
want Kyle to
we gave you a little something.
I want Kyle to take
Give
that
you a little
top note,
tease.
you know?
We can't give it for all the viewers right
Yeah.
now.
First show is a year-old, and I mean, it was a really good one. Like, there wasn't no like crazy sort of all in one, but it was a couple events, a couple different days. Got to hang out with a lot of different friends from past, present, you know. So it's more, you know, it's one of those things where it wasn't like a crazy blowout. We went to Aruba or nothing like that, but it was one of those ones where like I just really felt the love over the past week. So, you know. Like
A different
in some
party
ways,
every day for a week.
well, you
And
know,
he's
it's
still
Mr.
celebrating.
Popularity.
I mean,
Come
honestly,
on.
it's still like I still got something coming up tomorrow. You
We
know,
love that.
pull up.
Treat yourself.
But
Bob.
you know, it's one of those ones where you look back and you're like, you know, and it sounds cliche and all that, but it's like, you know, I really couldn't ask for nothing else.
Ain't God good?
You know,
Look at
only people missing were my family back down in Texas.
Yeah.
You know, that was the only missing element. But I appreciate y'all looking out, and
Of course.
another year, let's get it.
Shout out to you
Sir.
for another year. I know you missed last week's episode, but at the tail end, we got in a conversation about the new big three, if there is one. I think we kind of came, I'm going to say kind of because it was him and Damian. He came to with a little, you know, not a consensus, but a 2-on-1, like what their big three would be. It would be Kendrick, Future, Travis Scott.
Thinking through
Okay,
that,
so
thinking
Potentially.
so the ground rules, because Kendrick obviously is in most people's current big three. So
He-
you can,
yep.
Mhm.
you can extend your contract. You can
Because of his
release.
monstrous year,
Okay.
he is solidified
Okay.
as the best rapper alive. So he transfers over.
And how did you take that?
My king is still, you know, in the top three. I am
Oh.
objective enough to say this is Kendrick's moment. This is his time right now.
Sure.
But if I had to, my three would probably be Kendrick, Future, and Drake. So Travis is not in it for me right now.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that, but it's so funny how it's like the new big three are the niggas who've been running. Like, this could have been the same case 5 years ago.
So you
That's
know
what
what?
I-
It's
that's what
just
I'm
funny that
saying.
it's like,
This is fair, and I do have a modern day big three,
okay,
and none of those guys are included. So I would probably go Travis. I would probably go Rod Wave, and I would probably
Okay.
go Playboy Cardi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I put it over Rod. I put Tyler over Rod.
The creator, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that.
I think that combo of like his acclaim, his success, we know he can sell, we know he can tour well, you know, he can like headline major festivals.
Yeah.
He's beloved across genres. Like, he's kind of lacking in like, you know, a handful of real pop hits, but like he has songs that people know for sure. So like, I feel like he's a name that doesn't get thrown around as much, but deserves a little bit more consideration in these conversations because he's been pretty consistent and on a upward trajectory, I feel like,
Yeah.
for the past couple of years.
I like that pick because he's somebody who came in early 2010.
Yeah.
yeah.
And he is, since Flower Boy, he just found his groove, never looked back.
Mhm.
So I do like that pick. I mean, Trev, what is your big three? If there is a new big three.
You know, and part of me, that was a good tease, because part of me, we even talk about this, is like, it just feels like we're, you know, in such a unique moment of almost like sports, like, you know, where you have these goats all going at the same time, and it's just kind of hard to think, okay, who's going to be the ones to put up these same kind of numbers or these same kind of cultural events. And it's a little tough because I was, you know, I mean, obviously I try to look at stats and numbers and everything, and those main three are still watching the conversation. Like, we didn't even mention Cole, for example. I mean, Cole is in the mix, but and you could say, okay, maybe Cole's last album was a little cooler than the ones before. You know, where's his status? But he's still a huge gap amongst a lot of those kids. I think the only thing with Tyler, I do love Tyler in the sense of, I think what he presents is where like hip hop is going in terms of, you know, not only just the music that he can put out, but also different kind of sounds, different kind of looks, like very fashion forward. One of the first ones to really, you know, take that and run in the past couple of years and build his own kind of empire on that side. The only thing about Tyler is I feel like he just drops almost too inconsistently that I wish, you know, I wish there were a little, you know.
What is his schedule like? It's like what, every 2.5?
I was gonna say, so
years?
what was the last one? Call Me was 2022 or one?
I think it was one because
we got a deluxe
but it
version
kind of
in
had like it had
23.
life in multiple iterations. Like the
Yeah.
vinyl came out way later at one point. The deluxe came out,
Yeah.
so it kind of had this crazy long tail that's probably just gonna be unusual for anybody. But
Yeah.
Igor was 19.
Yes.
Okay.
Igor was 19.
So I mean, yeah, it's like we're probably due for one now. I just feel like, you know, compared to the other ones, I mean,
Yeah.
Kendrick obviously is pretty slow too. Maybe we got lucky this year with the beat, but you know, Drake, Future. I mean, we see them just continually rack up. Megan, you know, I mean, Nicki, besides, you know, even with features and things like that. So even if they're not putting out their own albums, they're still present in that way. And Tyler's really, you know, very selective.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything about the quality. Let me make that very clear. The quality is still outstanding, but I kind of just wish like he was a little more present in that mind. That's my only kind of thing.
Yeah.
Low key, somebody I was trying to think of, you know, different permutations, and I know one thing we sort of mentioned in a pre-chat was, you know, if there's a woman who could be in that big three conversation, and I was going through and I was like, well, I mean, obviously Nicki's the first one that comes to mind, but low key, I'ma still go on this hill and say Doja Cat.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Doja
that's
Cat
who my head's going
raps
to.
her ass off. I don't, you know, it's just, and I think it's especially interesting for her because she clearly has pop sensibilities like no other. I mean, you know, she knows how to make a pop hit, craft a hook, things like that. So the songs are sticky, and I just think the different cadences that she uses. I mean, you know, when I heard Agora Hills for the first time, you swear it's a feature because it's almost like, who is doing? And it's like
this
Valley
Girl
Girl
voice,
accent.
yeah.
Then she flips it. You know, all her products have a little rap taste to them. So I think, you know, coming off Scarlet, I mean, we'll see if she doubles down on another rap album at some point or where it takes her. But I think, you know, that she can go toe to toe with anybody on any of their tracks. Yeah. And I mean, live as well. You know, the tour came through
easily
about
the
a year
best,
ago. The
one of the
Breath
best
Control,
live
like,
yeah.
And you just see everything from, you know, songs that weren't even hits like Tia Tamera or something. They'll go crazy. Like that song, you know, technically on Doja Cat's list, it's down there.
Right.
But it's like, play that shit through
nuts,
and everybody goes hard. So, I mean, I feel like if she really wanted to, you know, consolidate and run that lane, she would, I mean, she'd be right up there with anybody.
I also want to give her props for like Scarlet being like a well done era, like proper lead in with the tension. Like obviously the big hit is Paint the Town Red. The album does well. It gets a deluxe version. She has her own tour that she's doing arenas across the world. Like everything was really well done for a moment for her that seemed pretty contentious. People were like, can she pull off this like actual hip hop rap era? And she just did it almost effortlessly. Like I gotta give her props for that for sure.
Yeah, and I think for me it's kind of a gift and a curse, right? You kind of saying like, if she devoted herself full time to this, sky's the limit, you know. And I think for me that's probably why I'm a little reluctant to put her up there, because you know rap is not her go-to. You know,
I mean, I know what you mean. It's like if you're gonna be in it, you gotta live it,
commit to it.
And I mean, well, give me Scarlet.
I mean,
too.
just like, is she not committing to it? Like,
I mean, to be fair, because I think even with Scarlet, you know, I'm sure a lot of people probably thought, and I know people say, of course, Paint the Town Red is, you know, kind of skirts both lines. It was up for pop Grammys. It obviously was a big hit on pop radio, but you know, it's almost one of those things where I think when Scarlet was coming up, people were not sure she was going to even fully commit. Are there going to be a couple rap songs? Is it going to be rap heavy? Is it going to be, you know, and we'll sprinkle in a couple safe pop hits, because surely you would think, you know, the label, you know, the fans, the radio would kind of want like, okay, you know, you just coming off Planet Her, you running pop radio, you running rhythm radio, you got to give us a little something. And she was like, nah, this, you know, Paint the Town Red is as good as you're gonna get.
Yeah. I mean, to her credit, she did like that first taste was Attention, and like that was a straight rap track, and I think it was Grammy nominated. Like,
I think, yeah. And I mean, like, and choosing that as a lead-in, you know, definitely was a signal.
I think for me as well. Again, I love Doja, and I remember writing this essay about her slow burn to superstardom. I think what she needs to do to bolster her resume, she just needs a #1 album. Like, I think it's pretty interesting that that's a glaring mark on her resume, a blemish on her resume. She still does not have one. She's more
Is
than
that
capable.
a knock for Meg too?
But you don't think?
Yeah, I kind of like it. That's where it gets a little sticky for me because Meg put out to me a amazing body of work this year. Still, that #1 album is missing from her catalog, and I feel like for her, it's kind of like, remember that was the thing with Nicki, where it was like, yo, she still don't got a #1 single, and Nicki's still Nicki, but it was kind of like the chip on her shoulder. She needed to prove that, she was able to get that.
But I also like gotta contextualize it in terms of like the landscape of female rap.
Mm-hmm.
It's only 2 female rappers who are active now who have a #1 album under their belts, Nicki and Cardi.
Okay, I thought you got it.
It's like
just making sure. I was gonna say,
nah, it's like Nicki and Cardi. It's like
who?
I was gonna make sure he threw Cardi in there.
Okay, I gotta be honest.
I was ready for that Lauryn Hill line, and I was like,
we
pulling back to
nah, they're the only 2.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it seems to be easier for the guys to, get the numbers to go #1, where I feel like that's a bit more of a requirement for them to be in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying I'm lowering the bar in any kind of way, but I am being cognizant that like the landscape is a bit different when it comes to the women and like selling albums and selling full projects and stuff like that.
That's
but
fair.
Ain't nothing to knock about a top 3 or top 5 and like multiple, consecutive top 3, top 5 projects either. Like rather that than one #1 album and then you don't see the top 5 ever again after that. So
that's fair. And I think just somebody for me that's a dark horse is probably Uzi. Uzi was in those conversations. I feel like Lil Baby was in those conversations as well.
Yo, Uzi was like
a couple years ago.
A lot of cats' favorite artist, right? Around 2017, 18.
Yeah.
Like just you hear a lot of artists talking about like who excites you, who are you listening to, and Uzi was usually right there at the top of the list. So
any thoughts on Lil Baby? Yeah, I was gonna say. Is it? Are we clipping it? Remember, he was just before this album. He was on top of the moon.
Yeah, I mean, My Turn was a crazy.
My Turn was,
it was
a
crazy success.
Yeah,
biggest album that year in 2020.
Yeah.
Obviously was a crazy year, but for him to consistently have that from, I think the album came out in like May or so. And I mean, this is the time when like, I mean, The Weeknd had albums,
Dua Lipa,
Lady Gaga,
Doja.
Dua Lipa. I mean, there was no, even though it was a pandemic interrupted, there were still some huge heavyweights putting them out. And the fact that he was able to eclipse them all, without necessarily that crazy pop hit, that #1,
Yeah, Taylor dropped 2 albums that year. Like, and he still was the #1 album that year. That's crazy.
Bigger Picture was a moment in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that Grammy performance.
Yeah.
And everything was like one of the, definitely in terms of hip hop, one of the most memorable ones, the past 5-6 years, easy.
Definitely. So curious guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Who are y'all big 3? Definitely want to see that. Next up, woo, the good brother, man. Tommy Richman. He released his debut album, Coyote, a few weeks ago. It did not land on the Billboard 200. It sold a meager 4,300 copies. Now, I think it's important to state that this album did not include his Hot 100 banger, $1 Million Baby. Devil's a Lie was not on the project as well, so he snipped those 2 tracks.
Yeah.
And said, fuck it, I'm still a star. I'm going to show y'all what I do. Did not land. And he also was in some hot water about some comments he made on X about not being a hip-hop artist. But in contraire, $1 Million Baby is potentially up for hip-hop categories at next year's Grammys. So a lot to unpack here, but let's try to get through it. Let's first talk about him not even landing on the 200. Are we surprised about that or not, Kyle?
Given that the 2 singles are not on the album, I'm not entirely surprised. I did think there would be enough interest generally in Tommy Richman to at least land on the chart. So him missing it completely is a bit of a shocker for me. But I also do just straight up respect him sticking to his guns and putting out a project that he felt 100% confident in. And in that iteration of that project, it did not include those 2 singles. And I respect that. Like, if they didn't fit for you, they didn't fit thematically or sonically, and they didn't, belong on the album, don't put them on the album just to run up numbers. Like, I can respect that. But
not Devil's a Lie. $1 Million Baby easily could have gotten to 10,000.
It could have,
which is kind of crazy to me.
But I also do respect the tenacity of like a breakthrough artist being like, you know what? I actually don't care what numbers this project does. I want my first, my debut album to be as truthful and as honest to myself and my artistry as it possibly can be. And if that means that my biggest hit isn't on it, then my biggest hit isn't on it. I just probably would be a little bit, less talkative.
Yeah, I wonder how
online
the
about
label
it
is
all.
feeling right now. Trev?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle hit it on the head. Like, artistically, okay, and he's not the first to,
Yeah.
I mean, like, look, I mean, some people looking at like Chapel Roan, for example, wondering why, Good Luck Babe came out after the album. She could attack that on, got those points, maybe put that album that's in at number 2, so it's audience success without it, but could be a number 1 maybe. So he's not the first to do it. And look, if you feel like, I'm only Tommy Richman knows what a Tommy Richman album is supposed to sound like.
Right.
When I heard the album, it doesn't sound crazy. Like, it's not like, oh, I can clearly see why $1 Million Baby won. Not like, it doesn't sound different to me where it wouldn't have fit. But okay, so Tommy knows what he wants to do. Maybe it's to prove, something. Maybe this is just not in his, in the landscape. And maybe it's one of those things where $1 Million Baby was just a single that came through. And when they saw how well it did, then you kind of greenlight the album. And that always had a different vision with it. Now, I'm sure from a business point of view, everybody, A&R Twitter, PR Twitter, management Twitter is sitting there thinking, what? Like, can we, throw it on as a bonus track, you can somehow separate it and still include it in the same way, because I'm sure, when $1 Million Baby dropped, we all thought, okay, whoa, Tommy Richman is really about to maybe reset the new artist race and really put himself in that conversation. And yeah, I mean, the singles since then have all kind of slid back. Devil Is a Lie was a step back from $1 Million Baby. Thought You Were the One was a step back. Whitney. So it doesn't seem like there's really a big buzzing hit that's going to come through. So especially when you look at the legacy of the album, like, oh, at least it could have made the 200. Maybe it would have, got some more legs out of it, but to just sort of miss that on the resume, I'm sure, people are going to scratch their heads and sort of wonder, okay, maybe we need to sit down and show them the graph and say, this is the album with $1 Million Baby, and this is the album without it. Clearly, the man made his choice, and, he must be
I feel like
okay
it's
with
just
that.
like a business versus art thing for him, really. Like, do I care that much?
And it's interesting, right? Because part of me was wondering if he was taking a page from Abel's book when Abel first came out in terms of being kind of press shy and elusive. He's only done, like, since $1 Million Baby has blown up, 2 interviews. One with us and then with Zane Lowe. And he's been very adamant.
Shout out Billboard for that, that T Rich, baby.
Come on.
Written by me, by the way. But no, like, I just talking to him as well, he's very intentional about some of the decisions he makes. So to Kyle's point and your point, Trevor, like, him being intentional about, I'm going to show y'all I'm still ill without these records, I can respect that.
Yeah.
I can respect that.
Artistically,
you know what I'm
have
saying?
to.
And he has this certain moxie and confidence. Like, I remember talking to him, and he was just like, yo, bro, like, cats may laugh at me now, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be performing at the Super Bowl one day. And this... Yo, you ain't shit, man. Brothers could dream, man. But
I'm right there with him. I'm right there with him.
That kind of, you know what I'm saying?
But cats are gonna sit there and say, because because I bet Tom Richman in the same point of view, to flip it back 6 months, cats never thought I would have a number 2 debut hit out of the gate. They said he keeps trying, he keeps putting out these little songs. I don't know why none of them are working, none of them's doing nothing. And then y'all didn't believe in that. So, maybe in the long tail, he's like, y'all don't believe in the album, and maybe it's a slow burn. Maybe there's some, something catches on virally. And maybe in a year, he'll come back with that 2 for 2 and say, don't doubt me now.
And in the grand scheme of things, again, he had a number 2 song in the country amid the freaking Kendrick Drake feud that it came out and was still landing and sticking.
Yeah.
So that says something. So Tommy, irregardless of this dismal performance on the 200, still a win in my book.
Yeah.
I think of somebody like Tizo Touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
We've spoke about before. Debut album did not land on the 200. Was acclaimed. And he was still landing these features. He's still, opening up for Travis Scott on his tour.
Yeah.
Like, he's still making an impact out here. So just because you guys don't necessarily kill it on the 200, it's not end all be all. A la Doja Cat. People forget about Amala.
Right, that's the actual debut right there.
Yeah,
exactly.
but I mean, let's not act like Doja Cat had the momentum of a Tommy Richman.
You're right.
And honestly, to that point, though, I feel like Million Dollar Baby might have had too much momentum to the point where, like, if it was attached to the album, we still would just be talking about Million Dollar Baby and not the tracks on the album, regardless. Like,
Right.
even after Million Dollar Baby dropped, Devil's a Lie had a little bit of noise for those first 2-3 weeks, and then just kind of took it back to the conversation again. And like you said, the later singles made less and less noise. So if it was already looking like that before the album arrived, I kind of understand why he doesn't want to attach the two things right now. And, you know, nothing's stopping him from, you know, by April next year, a little deluxe edition comes out and tacks those two back on. Like, it's early in the cycle.
I mean, we do this thing where, you know, unfortunately, and I get it, like, we're all excited for somebody. When that first song hits, or, you know, that thing connects, we are all like, the album? Where's the album? Bring the album, you know? And we set these high expectations where it's like, okay, if you got a number 2 single off this album, you better have a number 2 album to match it or something. And, you know, I think we see, like, again, with acts like Tizo and even established acts, you know, where we're seeing, you know, artists crack the top 10 for the first time, like someone like a Party Next Door, we talking earlier, you know, him getting that top 10. We see something like Doja Cat, who clearly has so many pop hits under her belt, mentioning that she, you know, has yet to crack number 1. So we set these high expectations at a time where almost, you know, it feels unrealistic to put that on them. Almost like when with the touring artists, where people say we're booking too big arenas too quickly. It's like, you know, maybe we got to just use this kind of moment and relook at everything and temper our expectations about, not like to say, you know, you can't clear this bar, you can't make it, but really have a realistic look at, you know, what does success look like, and how do we measure and qualify and talk about what a successful debut is, even if it doesn't make number 1 or you know, top 10 or something like that. It can still be a win.
How do we feel about his "I'm not hip hop" comments? But then again, on the contrary,
you know, he's allegedly submitted for Best Melodic Rap Performance and Best Rap Song for Million Dollar Baby.
Now, you know, the lawyer would come out and say, you know, if you read the tweet, Tommy said he's not a hip hop artist.
I didn't make a hip-hop
but that didn't mean yes, right.
There we go.
Be a hip hop
There we go.
song. You see
Listen,
how,
next stop,
the
Soul Train
loophole,
Award.
I'm
Just
I'm just
there.
saying, you know, he gonna
Shout out to Bunny Long with the loophole, by the way. She didn't think Cass was gonna catch it for Made for Me.
Good
You're
for
the one who
her.
pointed it out.
I got a roundup of all the live versions that were submitted coming out soon. Like,
Yo, Money said we getting
that Grammy.
I
I know that's right.
I'll bet you I will be in that R&B field.
But Tommy, I mean, that whole conversation just kind of felt like deja vu from the Post Malone era before, you know, we get to country version of him. And it's like the latest example in really decades upon decades of white artists being able to maneuver through genre labels on a whim, whereas we still have to deal with 6 years worth of discourse if Beyonce can call her album like country or not. Like, there's a benefit that Tommy gets just by being aligned with hip hop culture, whether that's just the cultural cachet of Black Cool, or whether that's like algorithms helping his song pop up alongside other hip hop adjacent or other hip hop songs. So like, he has every right to call himself what he wants to call himself. Absolutely. But there, you know, he doesn't exist in a vacuum. He does also exist in the context of this specific industry and this specific time. And whether he likes it or not, the Breakthrough song has him in hip hop circles. And he's got to be cognizant of that when he makes those grand statements and stuff like that. But, you know, he wasn't being rude or facetious or like, you know, any ill intent behind what he was saying. But it is just taxing and tiring to have this conversation over and over and over again. And it feels like it just happens like every 3 years now, every 2 years now. Right. There's like a white artist who breaks through in like these hip hop adjacent circles, has their whole like, I'm not hip hop, I'm not R&B moment. And it's like, whenever a Black artist wants to do anything like that, there's always so much pushback and so much hoopla around it. But I don't know. I will say, I don't know where else I would have put Million Dollar Baby at the Grammys though. So like this kind of this feels fitting. Yeah. I wouldn't want to see this like next to Lucky Day in the R&B categories, and it doesn't make sense next to Sabrina Carpenter in the pop categories. So I understand that. It is just kind of funny how the timing worked out. That like 3 days later submissions leaked, and it was like, thought she wasn't hip hop, but you know.
And I wonder too. I mean, you know, also to go off that, just because you submit something in a category doesn't mean it's going to be accepted and taken. So it'll be interesting to see if, you know, the Grammy sort of rap body accepts that in the nomination, or if they try to kick it to pop or something. I mean, it had kind of legs and life in a lot of different circles. So there are a couple places it could land. I do agree melodic rap is probably makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And I'm also kind of curious what Tommy would call himself, like, just because he said he's
I'm
not a hip hop artist.
I'm
So,
an artiste.
I mean, not for nothing, if he and Shabuzi kind of come from the same cloth in terms of the area and the styles. And I mean, Shabuzi clearly is someone else who's, having people scratch their heads about how do we call, are you country? Are you rap? Are you, a little bit of everything? So, maybe it's just something that in that Virginia
Come
circle,
on, Virginia. They kind of got to
they
mix
say,
everything over there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but definitely, I mean, I think this also makes me wonder what album number 2, if that comes,
I mean, listen.
some people, some folks only put out one album. I don't know,
I think just to put a bow on this, Brent Faiyaz, where are you? Because the reality is this is his artist. So it's kind of weird for your artist's debut album. You're not there to really champion him publicly. And I know Brent has always just been naturally a laid back guy sitting, behind the scenes. But you would think somebody who had the number 2 song in the country, you would kind of want to stand next to him.
But then, I feel like cats also, that crutch comes in, where it's like, you got to have Brent come out and support,
It also was just, it feels so like anti-Brent for him to be like front facing like that. Like he barely is even in the mix when he's not on his own album cycle. So like to see him for time, I'd be like, damn.
I don't know. I
Why
feel
aren't
like
you
now
quiet right
more than
now?
ever, if you step into an executive role, you got to make executive decisions. And you got to do things that may be uncomfortable, which is like getting in that spotlight and trying to push your artist. Especially, Tommy did the easy part. He got a hit. All you got to do is come outside with him.
The easy part. All you got to do is get a hit, folks. That's all you got to do. Just go and get you a number 2 hit. Just go and pick one up out the lobby on your way out and grab you a number 2 hit.
But I think this opens up a way bigger discussion, and we were talking about it ahead of the show. The state of R&B. We are in a very interesting place right now where it is not performing at its best, versus previous years. This year, we've only had Usher and Party Next Door debut top 10 on the Billboard 200. And a long list of artists that dropped this year includes Kehlani, Money Long, Bryson Tiller,
Tinashe, Forbats, Lucky Day, Normani, Raven Lenae, Chloe, Childish Gambino.
It keeps going. And it's kind of alarming and scary knowing that we have so many talented R&B artists, but yet they're not able to crack that top 10. So what can we do if there's anything to remedy of it? What are y'all thoughts on the current state of R&B? Is there anybody that can help fix and resurrect the genre from a commercial standpoint?
Man,
it's loaded. I know.
I know it's just one of those questions that it's funny that I know people have sort of hand wrung about it for a couple of years now. That what's going on with R&B? Why is R&B not connected? Now, why is it not connected? I mean, me personally, I think it's just I think it's just changed in a sense. Like, and what I mean by that is, I do think that the quality of the music is always there. Yeah. I think, it's not a situation where it's just like, oh, the R&B songs aren't good anymore. I think one thing that's changed is maybe the tempo in general is much, slower, more moody. I mean, I think some of the biggest R&B stars out there, people like Summer Walker or Janae, I mean, even some of the guys we named like Lucky, there's a mood shift that I think kind of for most people only, there's only a certain time and place for that. Like, I've always advocated that I think what's open is sort of the up-tempo lane. I think maybe Chris gets in there a couple times, but I'm surprised that, more people haven't tried a higher tempo track. I think it's something, even something like Pressure, Ari Lennox, which I thought is a great example of like, it's not necessarily like an up-tempo dance track, but it's got some bounce to it. It's got some flavor. Like, I think it's a good track that just sort of works, on radio any time of day you can put it on, and it's not like, we changing the mood, or we changing the pace, or we changing the tempo. It's just like a good, bouncy sort of sample-laden track that, to me, was like, oh, and to me, it's no coincidence that that's her biggest hit.
Yeah,
it cracks the Hot 100. It's a huge radio hit. Yeah. So I think personally that I would like to see more artists get in that bag, and I think when R&B was at its peak in terms of commercial success, when you're thinking about Destiny's Child or Usher or some of those cats, they were able to marry the ballads, with also up-tempo stuff.
Mhm.
You know, Be Without You can be a crazy hit, but Family Affair for Mary is, you
Yeah.
know, get us right on the dance floor, get us crunk, and it doesn't lose any sense of, you know, there's no sense of, is it too poppy? Is she kind of abandoning? It's like, no, this is straight R&B, Dr. Dre produced hip hop flair, and it gets people moving and grooving. And I think, especially, you know, sort of post-pandemic, I think people want, you know, a little more liveliness, a little more, you know, excitement in their music. I think even in the pop space, we had kind of this down tempo, you know, kind of sad boy, sad girl pop moment. And I think for those who can break out and do something fun, like whether it's, you know, a Shabuzi, not like us clearly being, you know, the crazy
Chapel,
record,
Sabrina.
Shuffle, all that stuff. It's like,
But I think it's interesting, right? Because look at somebody like Money who has 2 top 20 records. They are very those are like slow churning.
Yeah, I feel like the artists aren't the issue. I feel like, because, you know, there have been major R&B like moments. I feel like in recent years. You mentioned the 2 Money Long records, obviously Snooze, I See You, Coco, Over, Lucky Day, you know, On My Mama, Victoria. Like, these are all R&B moments that are straight, you know, R&B tracks that were having a little bit of crossover moments in their own right. I think what's hurting R&B right now is the continued sort of coupling with hip hop in every conversation. Like, rarely do we get to kind of just see like R&B stand alone now as its own genre. It's always like hip hop / R&B, R&B / hip hop, and then the rap artists in that coalesced version of the genre start to dominate the conversation and the resources and the attention. And it's like, what happens to the people who are just making straight R&B music and not straddling the line in that way? I feel like in terms of just how they get looked at from the consumer side and from, you know, the business side of it all, they need a little bit more structure and support, maybe. Like, I think that hurts it a little bit. I mean, and that kind of goes back to a larger conversation that was happening on Twitter last week, or X last week, in light of the whole Tommy Richman thing. Like, what have been the ramifications of hip hop and R&B becoming hip hop / R&B in the past like 30 years? And what has that done to both sides of what that double genre looks like now?
Can I pose y'all this question? Why do you think SZA has been able to be such a stalwart and penetrate R&B like no other in the modern era?
I want to say because her roots are more alt than people actually give her credit for. Like, that mixtape run before Control is like super alternative music. Like, it's not necessarily like your soul-based R&B. And I think that let her get a foothold in a different audience, and alongside bringing in the R&B audience a little bit later on, and then like the rap audience through the TDE connection. She has a wider base to play with, I feel like, than some of her contemporaries. That's like where my mind immediately goes. Like, when I first encountered SZA, it wasn't necessarily through an R&B song.
Okay. Yeah, I would think a lot of, like, to that point, a lot of outlets like that cover SZA in a different way. Like, you know, SZA is very much in line with Pitchfork and Stereo Gum, and not that they necessarily are the arbiters of culture, but to Kyle's point, like, that is a different audience, a different reader base, you know, and especially one that has a lot of trust with those consumers. Like, hey, if we're telling you this is good, you know, at least check it out. And a lot of people clearly did check it out, love it. And the run up, I think, was also important in just establishing her, like, you know, mixtape by mixtape, strong consistency in projects. And I think it just led to that Control explosion. And then, of course, you know, based off that, SOS, you know, we're all anticipating it for 5 years. What's it going to be? What's it going to do? But the fact that she does a song like Phoebe Bridgers, for example. You know,
F2F is a whole
I was gonna say an all pop punk song, like those kind of things. Those kind of moments also help round her out in a way where maybe you wouldn't get in through Kill Bill or Snooze or something, but maybe, you know, it is Ghost in the Machine, maybe it's something else. And I think she's kind of,
and her podcast, like, she's doing like Maroon 5 collabs, Kiss Me More with SZA, like Black Panther soundtrack, like that all happens before we get to SOS. So it's like, her career is a little bit different, I feel like, than her R&B contemporaries. What I hope happens is that we have another year like 2012 where we got like Channel Orange, Trilogy, Kaleidoscope Dream. It kind of felt like a reset for the genre in terms of like where people were going. That year we also got like Tinashe's first 2 mixtapes that were like super like dreamy R&B, kind of like alternative R&B, like
I feel like even cats like
In Case We Dream, like Reverie or something like that. Like, another year where like we just get a lot of landmark records that just kind of give us a new path forward, I think is needed. I don't know when that happens or who that's going to be, but
I mean, I want also. I mean, to that point, 2016 too, same year, same kind of situation where, anti-lemonade, seat at the table, like blonde. Let me
So the missing link here is Frank, is what you're saying.
Hey, maybe we,
Mr. Ocean.
maybe that's it. He'll reset the conversation for us.
I think it's interesting to note too, even though these artists weren't able to perform well on the 200, they've been outside on tour.
Yes.
And they have been doing stellar
They're putting in the work.
Yeah,
that's no question.
Shout out to all the R&B artists on tour. Janae, no album out, an arena tour.
Yeah.
And she's doing her second leg. Kaylani enjoying her first arena tour. And you still got the vets. Like, I just took, Trevor went as well. I took my mom to go see Maxwell.
Yeah.
Had it.
With Jasmine in
October,
London.
Yeah.
I think also, I think that's a good point too, that they stick together.
Yes.
Like they know the importance of building each other, lifting each other up, opening those doors for each other. Like, so, because you could probably, I'm sure there are 10 other people that would be lining up for that kind of spot.
Yeah.
Maybe you want a rapper, maybe you want, but it's like, no, we want R&B strictly, and to unite, past, present, and future in that kind of way, like to help, cross the bridge between generations. I think that's a really important thing that those artists are doing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think next year, Janae's going to be outside. I'm talking musically.
Yeah.
Summer's going to be back outside. I hope Jasmine drops a project.
Oh, it's so Jasmine drops a project.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Beautiful project. And Frank, we would love another Frank project.
I mean,
if he feels like it.
I mean, I also give a little bit of credit to two artists who dropped albums that were, I think, good signifiers of where R&B could head on both sides of the sonic spectrum. Or there's more on the down tempo side, more on the up tempo side. But the Leon Thomas album, and then this is more of a dance album, really. But Kate Renata's Timeless album, I feel like are really good examples of where R&B can go with different tempos and playing with different influence from different decades, but also pushing it forward in a cool way.
Yeah,
I think. Hopefully, people really listen to those two projects and take some pointers, and we can see the fruits of that in the years to come. But keep an eye on those two.
Yeah, and Keitra. I hope Leon gets a look this upcoming Grammys as well.
Yeah,
from great album.
Is it too late? No.
No, he submitted.
He submitted.
Oh,
right?
he submitted.
I saw him put some Grammy consideration.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Let's get into our lightning round. Let's talk about some of the picks that we're digging this week. Mr. Anderson, I'll go with you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go take it to our cousins across the pond, and I'm going to look at a song that's really blown up in the UK that I've had on repeat for the past couple days. It's called Embrace It by Indots. It's
that TikTok one?
Yeah. I mean, it's very it's I kind of appreciate like how sort of, shameless it is, and there's TikTok is dropping in the lyrics. It's a pretty short song. It only clocks about 1 minute 45 seconds. But it's been number one on the UK R&B hip hop chart for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
It's just a good up tempo kind of vibe. Like, it's really start to finish. It doesn't hit you over the head too fast, but it's one of those things that I just think the beat is really cool. It has a little like sort of Spanish guitar lilt that tracks throughout, so it gives it a nice little hook that you don't expect, and kind of marrying, a little Latin guitar with like a UK rap voice is something that you don't hear very often. So just to have that kind of mix in there is pretty cool. It's just a fun song. There's nothing really, I'm going to sit here and say it's a Pulitzer lyric or anything like that. The delivery is just fun. I think it's a beat. It's just a guy who, this is his first viral hit. So really something he just created and is watching blow up. And number one in the UK, obviously, is no small feat. Hasn't really made too much traction in the US, but I think it's sort of, something that could definitely be on its way, definitely coming through TikTok. So, sometimes things translate, over there first, make their way over here, but it's just fun. It's quick. It doesn't overstay its welcome. And I just think the energy and the tempo of it is something. I always like fast songs. I always like songs, especially with hip hop, that just get you excited and fun. So it's a little party vibe, a little, good time, and that little Latin little flavor with that Spanish guitar. It's just been stuck in my head all day. So
Carlos Santana right there.
Ooh.
Yeah, sure. A little. You want to give it a little Maria or something like that? Okay, yeah. But definitely UK huge hit. Check it out.
Okay, brother Kyle.
I mean, you was giving me some jokes earlier about this pick, but my pick is Space by Mario.
Shout out to Mario.
Shout out to Mario. No really over the moon reason besides the fact that I really love Mario's voice. He has one of my favorite voices in all of R&B, and that's what makes this kind of Anderson .Paak light funk ish song work for me. It's not necessarily like the most groundbreaking song ever, but he sounds great, and I like hearing Mario's voice. So Space by Mario, give it a spin.
Yeah, check that out. Also, I know I brought this up to Trevor. It hit me. Let Me Love You's 20 this year.
Yeah, coming up.
Yeah. Big time. I
I
think he
mean,
had How
timeless
Could You
right
on the album
there.
too.
How could you? Yeah.
Yeah.
How could you? Is a little. That's still
And that
on the
voice is
playlist
still
to this
mint
day.
condition,
Yeah,
like,
Ghetto Kama
ooh.
Sutra.
Yeah, Mario's gonna be on tour with MJB and Neo next year, so make sure y'all get y'all tickets.
Gee, there you
for
go
that.
again. Another R&B,
Yeah.
stacked top to bottom lineup.
It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna actually go back to the pond. There's this kid named Nippa.
Oh, he's good.
Yeah, I just got hip to him this year. He's put out like just a trifecta of bangers to me. He gives me like a young Craig David vibe. I know some people describe his music as hood R&B, but he put out this song called Save Your Tears. Actually got a little guitar flow to it too. But I think his tonality is very like 2000-ish Chris Brown vibes.
Okay.
So
Like in that see, I'm telling you, like
he
on that
he's
business, I'm just
versatile
saying,
enough
on
to
that
play,
business
yeah.
trip,
He's versatile
That
to
lane's
play in
open.
both lanes, whether it's up tempo or down. And he actually worked with Craig David too on a record a couple years back, so I could see the semblance there. So Nippa, Save Your Tears. It's supposed to be a heartbreak record, but it feels good at the same time.
those are the best ones
Right?
when they mask the lyrics,
Yeah.
something that's different. Yeah.
So I would say check that out. He also has a record called Sugar with Larry June, which is hard, and Take Me. So shout out to Nippa. The UK is just, you want to talk about R&B? The UK got some.
Yes,
Yo,
they do.
I mean,
That
I was even
Cleo
thinking
Soul.
like, I was like,
Ooh,
Ella,
Yeah.
Georgia,
Georgia.
like,
Yeah.
there's, they've always
Cleo,
been,
Flo. It's a nice
Yeah.
collective over there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Salt.
We,
Yeah.
we might have to go to the pond,
Oh, little,
Get
little,
what kind of, see what kind of water they got.
little
over there.
unfiltered in London.
Hey,
Ooh,
London
London
town. My boy
town.
Craig David. Yeah, get a little something.
Okay, we gotta cut this off.
Wow.
Before we get
Anywho.
pour some water on that.
Anywho, appreciate y'all for kicking it with us this week on Billboard Unfiltered. We will see y'all real soon.